giant and the grasshopper. And this is such an insight into human failure. What they say when they come back is they say that there were giants there. There were people so massive and so big that we were in our own eyes like little grasshoppers. And then it says the words, V'chein hayinu b'eineihem. And so we were in their eyes. We started with a grasshopper mentality. But guess what happens as a result? You start seeing yourself as a grasshopper, then everybody's going to see you as a grasshopper. And that's what they said. We were in our own eyes, in our own estimation, we were like little grasshoppers. And that is how we were in their eyes. And Rashi continues to talk about the Midrash, that we overheard people saying that these little ant-like people, ants are walking through our vineyards, tiny little people, nothings. We'll stamp them out as if they don't exist. So this is a projection of a defeatist mentality in which we believe that we cannot. And I remember once, I think I shared at Shul once a limerick that said, he said it was a job that couldn't be done. He said it was a job that couldn't be done and half-heartedly went right to it. He tried to do what couldn't be done, and by George, he couldn't do it. Guess what happens if we believe that we're going to fail? If we believe that we're going to fail, we have failed. Because the me I see is the me I'll be. If I look at myself and believe that I'm endowed by Hashem with the strengths to confront the reality of my day, if that is my worldview, that Hashem did not make a mistake, has measured me and given me whatever it takes to endure and get through and succeed in this day. If I have that kind of faith, that I have the ability to get through the task, then we have won the battle 90%. When we went out to battle in the book of Deuteronomy, it says, Ki tetzei lamilchama al oivecha. When you go out to war on the enemy, and as the commentaries explain, what does it mean on your enemy? When you go out, your attitude has to be that I believe that I can win. I'm on my enemy. I'm on top of my enemy before I start. In my head, in my mind, in my belief of who I am as a person, I am able to fulfill the journey that is ahead of me. That is the most empowering ingredient, the most important ingredient is, do we view ourselves like grasshoppers? Because as soon as we do, everyone around us becomes giants. And that is a perspective of the world of failure because we don't believe in ourselves. We spoke about having the Yud of Yehoshua, Joshua's name, the Hey in Abraham's name. There is an endowment in every single one of us by God of strength, ability, a capacity to fulfill objectives. And if we don't believe in ourselves, then we do not stand a chance. This is an incredible insight into the projection of a human being into the headspace of somebody else. If I would walk out and constantly be aware that I am looking Jewish, and it's amazing when I go running in the morning, how many people, or when I walk on Shabbos and I say good morning and people say good Shabbos, I say, how do you know I'm Jewish? So there's a bit of a giveaway. I'm wearing a kapota and a black hat and sporting a beard. You know, there are a few details that kind of give it away. But if you walk outside and you feel uncomfortable in your own skin as a Jew, and what your head is busy processing is, how far back can I hide whatever makes me look Jewish? And if I can conceal anything that makes me appear to anybody else too Jewish, I will have I will have negotiated the street well. Unfortunately, in some places there's anti-Semitism, and you got to play it safe just because there's danger. And then you probably wouldn't be flaunting too much. But very often, It's about a personal complex. I remember when I was a teenager and a visiting rabbi, and I want to deal with one other thing, so I better move quickly. There was a visiting rabbi, Rabbi Lou, who's a rabbi in London, and he impacted on me largely as a teenager when I was at Yeshiva College as a student. And he came out and he spoke to us, and he told a story that he was once on a train to London, and it was time to put on tefillin. So he pulled out his tefillin, he started putting on tefillin. I guess today it could happen on an airplane. And what are the thoughts that go through your head at such a time? Like, what are people going to think? Like stress, like maybe you're going to think I'm the shoe bomber. Maybe, like you can go through all kinds of things in your head. Like, why would I want to stand out in public? So he pulled out his tefillin, he puts on his tefillin on the train, and everybody, all these pommies, are looking over their newspapers and contemplating this guy doing something so unusual. Maybe today it's more a sight more usual. And when he finally got to the destination, he put on his tefillin, somebody came over to him and said, I was watching what happened on the train, and I'm really intrigued, I'm really interested to know what gave you the fortitude to do something so unusual, so strange, knowing that the whole compartment on the train would be watching you and staring you down. Why did you not get bothered by this? And Rabbi Lu said to him, I made a calculation that 5 minutes after I get off the train, how much will these people, all of these people, every one of these people, how much will they matter to me in my life? Who's going to be thinking about me tomorrow or in 10 minutes after the journey? How much do these people really matter? They matter because their eyes are looking at me for half an hour. And on the other hand, I'm in the presence of Hashem. And Hashem said, my child, this is the mission that I have for you. And there's a mitzvah called putting on tefillin. So I weighed up my options and I thought, well, who do I really want to align myself with? The guys who I'm a 5-minute wonder in their life and don't care one iota about me for tomorrow? Or in the presence of Hashem, who's endowed me with strength and given me this mission? I remember as a teenager, it really impacted me. This concept of why do we do the things we do and what are we scared to do and how much are we acting out of personal embarrassment and overwhelmed by attitudes and people around us? And that brings about the grasshopper mentality. So if you remember anything from tonight's shiur, please God, there might be 1 or 2 things you remember. Just remember the image of the grasshopper and the giant. Because every single day of our lives, we have an opportunity to look at our lives and say, am I a giant or am I a grasshopper? Or am I a little midget that's climbing, as we said last week, onto the shoulders of giants that precede me? I have tremendous strength by the kinetic energy of my people, by the continuation of so much mesirut nefesh, self-sacrifice of generation. I've been endowed with great strengths. I could be a giant. And not an arrogant one, not one that thinks I'm better than everyone else. Moses was a giant, and at the end of last week's portion, it says that Moses was the most humble person. Moshe Anav Mikol Adam, he was more humble than any other person in the world. Because he looked at everybody and he said, imagine if you had been given my opportunities, you probably would have been a better Moses than I was. He looked around and he was humble. But he knew his strengths. He stood his ground. He knew how to talk to Pharaoh. He knew how to speak to Pharaoh. He knew how to hold his own against a very complaining Jewish people. So to be a giant doesn't mean that you have more muscles that you've pushed in the gym. It means that you have a capacity to follow through on your decisions and not be overwhelmed. And the first paragraph in our Shulchan Aruch, in the Code of Jewish Law, begins by saying, Al yevosh mipnei hamaligim. Never be embarrassed in front of those who mock and who scoff, because if that becomes your vision, your view of yourself and your ability, then you fuel that. You give them energy, you give them credulence, you give them importance, you make them grow tenfold bigger than they are. They become the giants. So weigh it up. Are you going to see yourself as a grasshopper? And by virtue of that, you make even the regular people around you become the dangerous giants. Or can you stand tall and proud and committed and strong, and thereby nothing around you really matters? It depends how you look at yourself. It depends how confident you can be in what you need to do. When I was about 14, Rabbi Elroy of the Berea Shul went overseas for a month, and he asked me to fill in for him and to do the reading of the Torah at Berea Shul over Pesach. It was like a full Parsha before Pesach and a full Parsha after Pesach, and the whole of Pesach, to daven until Shachanad, and to do all the laning. And I said to my father, there's not a chance, I can't do this. And he pepped me up with confidence, and he said, when you look out, and at that time Berea Shul, especially on Pesach, was a very full shul, talking about early 70s, is when you look out, you look at all the heads, and you got to tell yourself you're standing in a cabbage patch. I'll never forget the image, that all the heads are really cabbages in a cabbage patch. And I remember looking out, trembling in my knees, I was so nervous, and smiling in the back of my mind at this cabbage patch image that he had planted in my mind. And for sure, the confidence led to confidence, because thereafter, my father used to say to me, you've done it. You did it once. You did it in Berea Shul. Why can't you do it here? Why can't you do it there? So the me I see is the me I will be. And that's so important. If we see ourselves as capable and competent and we see ourselves as extensions of Hashem's mission, then we stand like giants. And the world around us can be like cabbage patches and can be like grasshoppers. But if we're the ones to project the image on ourselves that I'm a grasshopper, that's what we're going to be. God forbid.